Hello, and welcome to Afrofuturism in Comics by Howard, Zachary, Timothy, Alyssa, and Jasmin. So, what is Afrofuturism? Well, there are many different definitions of Afrofuturism, but they all capture the same main idea, and that is Afrofuturism is the reimagining of a future filled with arts, science, and technology seen through a black lens. Because they are filled with black culture and history, Afrofuturist perceptions of the future differ greatly from the white imaginations of the future. Afrofuturism is important because it introduces new aspects and ideas about the future that the majority of people would not even think about. The word was first created by Mark Derry in his essay called Black to the Future in 1994. However, Afrofuturist works had already been written before 1994. There was just no word to describe the genre. One of the very first Afrofuturists was Sun Ra in his 1973 film Space is the Place, which incorporates Egyptian culture in the settling of humans on different planets. Now we will talk a little bit about two Afrofuturist comics and explain their effects on the world and their effects on Afrofuturism as a genre.
The comic Misty Knight was made by Arvell Jones and Tony Isabella. The story is told in a fantasy setting and through visual storytelling. The story's main character, Misty Knight, is a police officer in the Marvel Universe. She lost her arm due to an injury and got it replaced with an bionic arm, which gives her superpowers. This showcases African fantasy and power. In her early life, she witnesses her cousin's death, but the police never looked into the case to find the killers, which shows that the story can be related to police corruption or racism, since both characters are African American.
Concrete Park is a comic set in a futuristic place known as Scare City, inhabited by many gangs and alien beings. Oasis is an isolated colony planet where outcasts are sent to work in mines. Scare City is located on the planet Oasis, where criminals and outcasts reside after completing their sentences in the mines. Isaac, one of the protagonists, is sent to Oasis on a spaceship, but the spaceship is blown out of the sky, sending him hurtling straight towards Scare City. When he arrives, he learns that the society on Scare City is made up of the idea of all against all, or every person for themselves. The comic focuses on themes relating to freedom, identity, survival, and violence. The unwanted people of Earth's society are sent to Oasis, where they are put to work in mines, with no escape back to Earth. The people on Scare City engage in all types of violence and fight for their survival and needs. Throughout the journey, they learn the roles and identities among the beings on Scare City. The authors created a comic brimming with diversity in sexuality, gender, and race. The diversity, interactions, and themes in the story reflect today's present society. The author Erica Alexander says, "We are in denial, and we may now be on the brink of the largest extermination our planet has ever endured. We did not create Scare City. Scare City exists all over Earth right now. Look around."
In the comic Misty Knight in Concrete Park, Afrofuturism is portrayed. In the first comic, Misty Knight, Afrofuturism is showed through fantasy setting and visual storytelling. Throughout the comic, African voices and subjectivity helped bring out the idea of Afrofuturism. Concrete Park by Tony Puryear is about Earth's outcasts being sent to a deserted planet. It relates to Afrofuturism because the main characters are minorities, who are mainly African, and each of their voices help create the story. Both of these comics help Afrofuturism take hold of the future and ensures another way to reclaim African humanity. African humanity is being reclaimed because Afrofuturism is growing, in which it creates innovative approaches to discussions in race, gender, science, and technology. So, therefore, both of these comics of Misty Knight and Concrete Park have showed Afrofuturism because it is giving a way for African voices to help in their future of technology and storytelling.
Misty Knight is about a female officer named Mercedes Kellys. The real world connection that it has is corruption within cops. There's corruption because in the very beginning of the story, within Mercedes' childhood, her cousin was found beat up and it was believed to be an act of racism. The cops got involved, but they never really bothered to find who the person who hurt Mercedes' cousin. This shows corruption because the cops never really did their job and instead ignored the case. Corruption is something that happens all over the world. No matter where you are, there's corruption, whether it's within the government, within local jobs, etc. The real world connection in Concrete Park is the racism that happens within the comic. The African Americans who were sent to the world were still being discriminated against, and this caused them to have a rebellion. Just like real life, the African Americans had their own leaders who were similar to people like Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. Racism is something that is prominent throughout the world, and in a time like this, it's even more prominent than usual. There are movements like Black Lives Matter, and more. And racism is something that should not be taken lightly. Overall, both these comics share the real world connection of racism. This is because if the characters weren't African Americans, they wouldn't have been treated the way they were within the comics. Things would have played out differently, and they could have even had better lives.
And that was Afrofuturism in comics. Thanks for watching.